Welcome to By George. This is an 80 Players podcast here at the George Theater. I am your host and marketing associate, Miranda Zapes, and today my host is...
Michael Mullins. I'm the design and production manager here at 80 Players.
And so we're going to be getting into what the production manager and everything does here at 80 Players. I'm going to let you know right now I'm a total novice, so if I ask you like dumb questions, don't let me know. Just please answer them kindly.
I'm a novice too, so don't worry. That's great.
And we're going to get into A Texas Carol and what the process for setting that all up was for the first year and for the second year. Yeah. But first, Michael, tell me, what is it that you do and what it brought you here to 80 Players?
Well, I came to 80 Players because there was a job opening, really, and then I inquired about it. I've been here for a little over 6 years, and we've grown exponentially since moving into the George. And so, every day we have a new growth on our horizon, so we're just like trying to understand that, analyze that, and predict our next steps for that. And what I do here is I used to be the technical director, so anything that was related to mostly scenery and anything that was, technical, if it was plugging in things or what, cables and whatnot, or patching. And it was just making sure that that was all set up, supervising a staff to make sure that that was all in order for the needs for a production and for the needs of the organization and how we go from one show to the next and look at a season as a whole. Right? Yeah. And now I'm the design and production manager. So it's a little bit different in that it's just one more wrinkle back. So it's a lot more front loaded and less on the day to day, and more about the hour planning of how the designs are coming in, the processes. Are we meeting deadlines and timelines so that everything downline from that can happen? Are we going to have any red flags on budgetary things or disconnects between visions and just kind of helping those align? Yeah.
So you say that you were first a technical director. What did you do before that, or what led you into a life of pursuing theater?
Wow. I was actually an actor at a community college.
No way.
I stumbled into a Theater 101 class, and it was the director or the professor at the time was just like, I don't believe in talent, I only believe in hard work. So I'm holding an audition this evening. Has anybody in this room worked hard in their life? And I had come from a sports background, so I thought like, sure, I understand that. And I needed a creative outlet, or not even a creative outlet. I just needed an outlet to connect to people, right? Another team, per se. And so I was like, wow, I'll try that. And so I studied that during the school year. And then a friend of mine was working at an opera company in the summers, a summer stock company, and they did not have a carpenter. They were weeks into their season and didn't have a carpenter. And they're like, does anybody know a carpenter? And they said, well, I know an actor who builds houses, because I used to build houses, right, as my summer jobs. And so they're like, call him, see if he's available. And so, I think I got a phone call at like 4:00 in the afternoon, and they're like, well, when can you start? And I said, when do you start? And they said, 8 a.m. tomorrow. I said, okay, I guess I'll see you at 8 a.m. tomorrow. Wow. And then that was the building block of how I got into theater. And from there, it was just always asking questions. Yeah. Like, oh, that's cool. How do you do that? Can you show me how to do that? And really, don't have a ton of formal education in like academia or anything like that. I have studied a lot, but amongst mentor type styles. Yeah. Just kind of put myself in positions where people were better than me, and that I could learn and observe and grow and ask questions. And that's it's 20 something years going on that sort of method. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you've only taken one like acting community college class. So did you ever go into like performance?
At the community college, I studied acting for 2 years.
Okay.
I actually studied in a conservatory in France for a year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For acting, and then moved to Houston and started doing technical theater. And that was sort of, I never was never a video game type person.
Yeah.
But something about building and then learning about technology like audio and lighting boards and how they work and circuitry and signal path. And it was just like, whoa, this is mind boggling. And then once you start to analyze that and learn how to manipulate the tools to make them do what you need them to do, that was a video game all in and of itself for me.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of like this, oh. And then you start to compound that with theater, where theater is it's education of all around. It's part architecture, it's part art history, it's fashion, it's all of this type of thing.
Yeah.
It's a wealth of knowledge forever, So it's a lifelong quest of just, that's cool.
No, of course. I mean, again, coming from a cinema background, like I did not notice, or I did not know the similarities between the two. I mean, there's really so much diversity in what it takes to put on a show at a theater. I mean, you're talking about the technical standpoint of it, but there's also costumes and lighting and sound. And then you have the actors and you have administration, everything performant. It's such a wide world that we all come together and just play pretend, put on a show and like entertain and tell a story.
It was really cool when I started transitioning into constructing theater sets and things like that. And just learning the substitutions of what you use in everyday life and everyday construction, 2x4s versus a 1x4 or a 2x6 versus a 1x6. And you don't use drywall, you use Luan or 1/4-inch material. And instead of doing actual materials, you learn how to paint techniques or you create your own technique that makes it fake and faux and lightweight and all that sort of stuff. So if you know the tools, how to join these things together and, spread paint, then, you have the building blocks. The basic building blocks is all you need to then just start to create on your own.
Yeah.
So.
And I love that you bring up the fact, you just started asking questions. I think that's such an important thing that so many people, even we just previously had all of our interns here and I got to sit with them for most of the day, for most of the time. And they would always feel so nervous to ask a question. Again, I'm on the administrative side. So how does this software work, or who do I need to send this to? But so nervous and like, oh, this is a dumb question. It's never a dumb question. It's just a question that you don't have an answer to yet. And I can help you with that. Right. And that's kind of the same way that I went to university, but I think of Jesse, my boss now, as my mentor. Any question I have about life or moving forward in my career, I know that I can go to him, or just on a basic level of construction. He showed me how to weld like 3 weeks ago, which was like out of nowhere.
Incredible, huh?
Yeah. But I think that's such an important thing to hone in on, that like, yes, you should just be asking questions. And if there's a field that you don't understand or that you don't know that it's always fascinated you should go ask somebody who's in that field. How do you do what you do? I'd love to just pick your brain about it.
Someone told me early on to never fear the expert, because the expert actually does want to help you.
Yeah.
They want you to bridge a gap in your skill set to take the burden off of them, in the sense where you're training up. I always wanted people to ask questions, and the fear is that we're always in an industry where we're busy, or we're looking like we're just, there's no time. Yeah. And so I always just preface as like, if you have a question and it's not the right time to ask, like it's just not, we don't have the time to answer it, just write it down. And then let's find the time. Let's digest that. Let's work through that. Let's sort of like figure out a scenario where that is relevant in this time where we can teach, And I was fortunate enough with that all through my life that, it's helped build, a strong foundation for where I am right now. So,
yeah. What's it been like? You talk about this creative aspect. Construction and technical directing, really working with your hands a lot, and moving up to a production manager, you say a wrinkle back and looking at the wider picture. What has that change been like for you?
Yeah, I have a lot less paint under my fingernails. And my back hurts in a different way. Okay. In that I'm sitting a little bit more than I would be like if I'm on my feet and doing. When you're a technical director, sometimes you're a doer. Yeah. And in the production manager standpoint, you're a little bit more of a planner. Or in a technical director, you're literally splitting your day, half doing, half planning. Sometimes in the nature of whatever the point of a process is.
Yeah.
So it is just a little bit less, it's just more dynamic from that standpoint. Sometimes you're like, man, I really wish I could get in there and just get dirty again. But at the same time, there's just higher priorities. And there's always going to be a time to get dirty. You know what I mean? There's always going to be that. So, I think did I answer your question?
No, you did. And I think what I'm getting at, because I feel like I'm the same way, there's like this balance between wanting to do something creative, wanting to do and create with your hands. And then there's this other kind of analytical part of you or part of me that I like the schedules, I like the planning, I like thinking ahead and the budgets and making sure that everything is taken care of. And it's kind of hard to live both of those worlds. Sure. And that's, I sit at my desk for most of the day now, but every time I get to come out and I actually get to create and I get to talk and I do a setup, like this is another aspect that I absolutely love. And so I just want to know from like your standpoint, how do you blend those worlds and what has it been like? I mean, do you think you say you're a performer, you were a performer and now you're doing this. How do those worlds collide for you?
Well, it's kind of interesting. I was reading a Rick Rubin book and, his approach is that it doesn't matter what you're doing, you are an artist. It doesn't matter if you're creating a spreadsheet, you are an artist. It doesn't matter if you are ripping apart a car engine, you are an artist. And you're utilizing all the visuals around you to inform what you're doing. And if you ever needed to reconnect to being being an artist, just look up, look around you, look around how everything the universe is clicking and the universe is inspiring. And when you have those receptors, it doesn't matter what project you're doing. Growth and creativity is coming to you and through you in whatever you're touching, whatever it may be. If it's tangible or intangible, if it's something that can be printed and thrown away, it's the same thing. I mean, we build a set that might not last but more than 4 weeks because that's the shelf life of it. But so you live, you celebrate, you observe, and then when it's gone, you let go of the tangibility of it and just move on to the memory of it. Yeah. And then start the process again. Mm-hmm.
So let's get in kind of to a Texas Carol.
Yeah.
But before we do that, on a grand scale, I want to know what it's like for you, start to finish, being the production manager for a show. What goes into it? What's the planning behind it?
Sure.
And from a standpoint of Texas Carol, like how did that come to be from start to finish?
Sure. So let's start Texas Carol version 1.
Yeah.
Right? So last year. So it's always going to start with a script, and this one was we were very fortunate that Jamie and Kevin wrote the script. So once we have the script, that's the rubric for everything, because that's our information source, right? That all the answers are in that black and white print, right? That's our guidelines. Then you wrinkle in a director who is saying, okay, we know the black and white. Here's what I want to work with as my concept, right? So we start that process. Let's say roughly about, if we were looking at it linearly, about 5 months out, right? Like saying, okay, we need these bodies in a room. We're talking about the concept. We're going to execute down line, and then have a discussion about that. Get all the information, ask all the appropriate questions, budget, timelines, different things like that. Try and remove the technical stuff out of it, but supply just enough information so that it gives them a ballpark to play in, the right ballpark to play in. So that they're like not designing a scenery that's $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 when our budgets are really only like, a lot less than that.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? So
No,
at least we're working in the confines of that sort of stuff. Then everyone goes away for a bit, right? So that they can incubate on that information, start to do sketches, start to do, go to a prelim phase, right? I'm speaking mostly in scenery right now because that's my background.
Yeah.
But it applies to everything else. So then we'll revisit that with a prelim, see where we are, see if we're meeting the vision, the concepts. If everything's realigning, then we take it to the next phase, which is, final design submissions. And then from that point, that's when the magic really starts to happen. The first part of the magic starts to happen because concepts become realities.
Yeah.
Then we're putting those designs against a hard number, a harder budget. It's less and less of a concept and more and closer to a reality.
Yeah.
And then, that's also when we wrinkle in a lot of the other design elements. We start to work in the lighting and the sound so that they know the scope and the world, because the director sets the concept, the scenic and costumes develop the world, and then everyone else down the line from that kind of is reacting to those or supporting those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like we said, we're working 5 months out, and we're also, so our hard deadline for us is really tech. When we are locking ourselves into the room for multiple hours at a time in the dark, and we're hashing through all the things that have been happening in various shops, right? And people in all over the country or all over the world or all over the city working on this project. And then we all get together in a room and sort it all out. How are we going to present this to the audience based on what our work is? So we use that from we use that as a rubric, and we use the final deadlines as the first checkpoint. And then we have to fill the gaps in there. So we have to work in like a build schedule. Okay, so how long is this going to take? Is it going to take us 6 weeks? Is this an 8 week? What is our load in time? How much time do we physically have to be in the space to assemble this whole set, the lighting rig, the audio, everything around it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. And sometimes it's not. We want to create it in the best formula that we possibly can,
of course,
for repeatability, and for utilizing our resources the best, so that when our designers and our creative teams walk in the door, we can present something to them that is completed enough for them to actually react to. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that they can start to do their fine-tuned work, giving us the notes based on an almost finished product. Yeah. Yeah. So that is how we do a production from start to finish from scratch, right? Yeah. Now this one is a little bit different in that. Okay, so we designed a set for Meemaws, right? And we were so very fortunate that the show was selling, and it was but even before we even had opened, it was like, well, maybe this is something we remount. Okay. And so production people, technical people, all automatically go and you're like, why? And why this? And it's like, well, it wasn't designed in a manner or constructed in a manner to easily disassemble, to then re-put back together. Yeah. So quickly, so you're like, okay. If we had to cut that there because it has to like fit through that door and then fit into that truck and or be maneuvered by X amount of people to be reassembled later, like what kind of repair job do you have to do? Oh, I see. Later, okay. Yeah. Right? Because it never will just come apart beautifully. Yeah. They can if they're planned that way. No, of course. We just didn't. That's what I was going to ask. It wasn't like in the building process. You didn't know that this was going to be a remount. Just not up front. Yeah. But like, hey, that's a beautiful place to be. Like, no, of course. Can we keep it? Like, yeah. We can. So once we got through everything, we muscled through just getting it up and open last year. Yeah. Immediately after that, it was okay. Document everything. Take pictures of anything that you possibly can. Like, so a year from now, you aren't going to remember what you did. Yeah. So just take a picture, label, store this, store that, and then start to break apart. Like, okay, that's a 16-foot wall, but it only can fit through a 12-foot door and then has to go onto another truck. Where's the break point that if you cut right there, what does it damage on the back side or on the front side that's going to need to be repaired later? Or what expendables are we going to have to repurchase next year that just wouldn't last in transport or anything like that? So what was great, it was we were documenting all of that sort of stuff and taking lots of pictures so that we could revisit a year later. And then when we were going through our budgeting phase for this year, it was I think we closed that show, and before we even had it, we could hand a budget of like, okay, we think that if we were to remount this, we could do it at this cost.
Yeah.
Right. These are the things that were damaged. These are the things that we know we're going to have to repair. Same thing with costumes. It was, okay, if we had to remount the show with the same exact cast, this is what the budget line would be. If we had to replace a couple people or people had different conflicts, this is what that cost would be. So you're looking at like, which is nowhere near what the cost would be for doing it from scratch.
A whole new show, of
right?
course.
So it's just a completely different process, but all doable, you know,
No, of course.
and executed beautifully. I mean,
No,
incredibly, right? I mean, it would, you know, and with this one, there was things that we missed a mark last year on things that were completed.
Yeah.
So that the fact that we got to revisit it again, we could actually go, okay, we didn't get to really dig into that process or that gimmick or that trick. Can we do that now that we have the time? And that was kind of a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Where you only get it in a one-off and you weren't able to execute it.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that opportunity.
That's awesome. Is there, I mean, you mentioned it earlier about when you're bringing all the pieces together and during tech, you have the sound and lighting and everything come in, you're finalizing these things. I mean, we have our own theater. I'm thinking from a perspective of people who take shows like on the road or have to go into other theaters. What's the setup process like that for the lighting? Is there, I mean, I don't know the technical terms, like taking down lights and putting up different lights for each of the shows, and what's that process like?
Well, something that's like a touring show, kind of that in a nutshell. It's planned that way. It is designed that way. It is, they could rig up whole truss lines of lights that are already just pre-hung, pre-circuited, that sort of stuff. That rolls off of a truck, hooks up to a motor, goes up, next line set, next line set, next line set. For us, imagine a blank empty stage every time we walk into our first load in. So we close a show, everything goes away. Like we zero everything out.
Okay.
So it is black stage floor. All the electrics are like brought down.
Yeah.
And then we rebuild and reassemble.
Okay.
So everything we do pretty much is like from like nothing to full realization on every single one. And
that's what I was wondering. I mean, in this grand scheme of planning things, do you have to leave some lights up or something because you think, oh, we'll need the same kind of setup for the next show that we do? But you're talking about you start from a blank canvas every production, which makes sense. I mean, then you don't have to worry about that aspect of it, or if something suddenly changes in the last minute at tech or whatever, then that you have to reassemble everything. Yeah, you try and find some crossover if you can, but it's limited in that your electrics line sets, like all the different pipes that are above that house all the lighting fixtures, right? Yeah. Your first electric on one show is not your first electric on the next show, or the second electric on the next show. Why? Because the positioning of the set is different. Okay. Right. So if it's a box set and it's pushed further down stage, well, you don't need the upper third of the stage. Yeah. But if it's something like a full stage musical, right, your world expands. So you go, you have more footprint upstage to downstage. So so even though you want to try to do it like that way, and you really want to try, it's sometimes just beneficial to just clean slate, start fresh. Yeah. So you're not like patching cables from all over the place. And I can't imagine. I just it's harder to keep track. No, exactly. So just bring it in, wipe it out, go up, let's go. And put everything again. And then, mixed cables or anything. I think of like Christmas tree lights. I mean, we're coming up on the holiday season, and I think of, the one row of like lights that won't turn on. I can't imagine you having one light that you can't figure out, like, oh, why isn't this one working? And I'm sure that's happened before. But it happens all the time, every day. You know what I'm saying? It just happens. Yeah. I mean, but with experience, you get better at noticing symptoms and figuring out how to troubleshoot faster. Yeah. You've changed one fuse on a Christmas light. You're like, oh, it's probably the fuse, or oh, it's probably the bulb, or it's the connector, or hey, the whole thing's just bad. You know what I mean? So experience and asking questions helps you expedite those types of things. That's good. What? So you said many words that I know the meaning of.
I've said many words.
You have said many words.
Sorry.
Downstage, upstage, all the lights. I know those, but box theater is further downstage.
A box set
Yeah.
is it's a term that is used like so. The best way I can describe it is imagine if you were to walk into a recording of a sitcom.
Okay.
That would be classified as a box set. So if you're like walking into a theater where it's confined walls, right? It almost mimics real life a lot. That's kind of like a blanket definition of a box set.
Okay. Is that what we'd classify a Texas Carol as?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah. It's a non-realism, but lingers heavier, more. Let's say this: it's more realism on the interior,
Okay.
and then the auxiliary outside of that world, the legs and portals on the side, the rear projection of the skylines and stuff like that. But in that world, it's pretty real.
Yeah. What changed from the first production of Texas Carol? I mean, you brought up earlier that there were some things that you were able to fine tune, that you got to have some more nuance in. What can audiences expect going in on the set that's maybe changed?
Well, we tried to not change anything. Really, we just tried to actually execute things that we missed opportunities on last year, just because of timing.
I see.
So one thing that we didn't get to last year was the Dinkle Ranch sign. That was an incredibly beautiful design element that we just ran out of time.
Yeah.
And that happens in theater. You never have a 100% flawless performance ever.
Yeah, I can't
on any
imagine.
given night.
No.
Right? Nor do you execute a design 100% as drawn. It's always with a little bit of hiccups or compromises or it shifts, but you're always trying to make it as close to the rendering as humanly possible, as close to the model that the designer made. That's all we really tried to touch on with the scenic elements for this one. Lighting was the exact same. We just needed to get out of the way and just like let it grow, let it have its own entity, because there wasn't really much for us to revisit.
Okay.
We did some paint touch-ups on the fireplace, and then that we wanted to do that we just ran out of time on. But it's just dig in to more detail. Like, hey, did that paint treatment read appropriately under the lighting scenarios for this moment? Well, can we lean in and do that one a little bit better, or do you want to you're just honing your craft. You get to step back, look at it, and then it's not done. It's not gone. It's not vapor. It's all right. Let's play again. And anytime you touch anything again that you've once done, you're starting at it fresh with less tired eyes.
No, yeah, I'm sure.
And go, whoa.
What were we doing?
Well, yeah, okay, let's do that now. And or you have a year more of experience, or you maybe learned a new trick or trade or skill in that year that you can apply to something differently. So even though it's like a remount where it seems like there's no new growth or any new discovery, there's plenty. There's plenty in everything.
So I was talking to Olivia Swayze. She's one of the actresses in the show. She plays Maya Berry. She was telling me about the possum sequence, that there was something that changed there during this remount. What is that, or can we share that?
Sure. No, hey, it's theater magic. That was one of the elements that was just like written into a script, a little bit like I don't know. Probably similar to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where the squirrel comes out, right? And it's just mayhem. Well, we're like, okay, wait. We have a possum? Okay, are we going to see the possum?
Yeah.
Okay, if we see the possum, what does it look like? And if we see the possum, how do we control the possum?
Yeah.
To because in film you can just cut, right? So we were trying to figure out a way, so do we remote control car this thing and do all that? But then does that look hokey? Is it what's more like what's best service is it? So Kevin directed it in a way that we could just cue we don't see the possum. We don't physically see it, but we trick the eye to follow where the lens goes, right? By reaction or by things falling or whatnot. So those are one items that we revisited. We added more automated tricks so that it just had a more flushed out dynamic, where it was like, so the Christmas tree falling over, then the coat rack, but then we added some more stuff on the stage left side that were like ooh. So those were fun to discover, and Malcolm and Chad, our TD and ATD, worked like tirelessly on that and not only that, to make it repeatable and to make it controllable and consistent and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was kind of, those were if you don't know, come see it, right kind of video.
No, I was gonna say, like, having only watched, I didn't see A Texas Carol last year. I've only seen the archive footage that we have of it, and then I went in, not the preview night, the night before it, which I guess we were still in tech, and to see all of those aspects, like, this is different, and this is gonna be a lot more fun.
It was cool. It was one of those things like where it's the same thing like when the creative team reassembled and with the director and with Kevin and just said, okay, let's play again. Let's play again. That was all of these elements we don't have to think about. But now that we have the headspace to, put a focal attack on it, let's make these better. Yeah. And man, what a good place to be where you can actually like, touch on something again. That was like, it worked, but can we do it better? Yeah. Oh yeah, let's do it better.
I have a couple of lightning round questions I like to ask all of my guests at the end of the episode. So first off, I'm so glad to have heard that you were a performer at one point. It fascinates me to find how many people in the theater world, whether you're on the administrative side, the production side, the marketing, any side of it, has at one point actually performed on stage or has pursued performance. So I want to ask you, whether it was performing or just as your technical director, as your production manager, what has been one of the biggest mishaps that has happened on stage?
I came out of a costume change and a quick change, and my fly was completely down. And I had a blowout in the back of my pants, and I didn't know it for the second half of Act 2. So that was fun. I'm so
sorry.
Hey, it happens. Like, if you haven't done that at least once in your life as an actor, hey, good, you do it once, and then that's it. That's not a biggest mishap, but it's an interesting one.
Yeah. No. Thank you for sharing. We're coming up on Christmas. We're in the middle of A Texas Carol. It is the season of tradition. I want to ask, what is one of the traditions that you have in your family household?
I'm not a traditionalist in that regard in any way, but my wife really is. So I embrace hers, and so it's new PJs. Christmas Eve, and a time-honored tradition that her father used to do on Christmas morning was that you had to walk down the stairs in your new PJs and be recorded, and to welcome in the Christmas holiday in the morning of, and then you open presents one by one. And then take a break, have cinnamon rolls, and then finish your presents, and then have the biggest brunch you can ever imagine.
Oh my goodness!
So it's very simple, very basic, but it is by rote what we do every Christmas.
Yeah, that's some of the best holiday
And even
memories,
if you're staying at our house, you get new PJs, and you got to be recorded, and you got to come down the stairs. Our puppies do the same thing. They get new PJs.
Oh my gosh.
They have to come down the stairs. Record it every year.
Listen, you made me want to come
Come
be at
on
Christmas
over.
with you, but I don't want to be on camera. Listen, I'll take the new PJs.
You're on camera right now. Come on. So,
This is a controlled environment. This is I set up. If somebody else has a camera on me, I cannot control that, and I do not.
now
like
you know how I feel.
But my last question, it's a Texas Carol. Again, we have the line in the show, Dallas Ain't Texas Man. This year we have our 2 shirts, Aggies and the Longhorns. And I want to ask you, you said you were a sportsman. If you had to pick your team, which team are you going with?
The Buckeyes. Ohio State.
Listen, you can't, that's what Kevin did, and I need you to pick an answer.
I'm gonna go. Being from the Midwest, I'll say I'm an Aggie guy.
Okay. We'll have to get you a shirt now. I wish I had the shirts to show the audiences, but we've already been selling them. So make sure when you come in that you get your Aggie or your UT shirt.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I haven't touched on, Texas Carol wise, that you'd like the audience to bring attention to?
Well, no. I just would say thanks to the audience for embracing these characters enough that we were able to remount it again. I mean, I think that it was written in a way that these folks are very charming and very endearing, and the story is universal, and the time of year is universal. Basically, just thanks for coming, and thanks for partaking of just a raucous, fun, entertaining show that we had the opportunity to do it again, So, yeah.
Yeah. What have we talked about at all? What next season's going to look like for Christmas? Can you reveal anything?
I am strictly a production person. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's probably.
But you've heard the whisperings around the office.
Sure. I will say stay tuned.
There we go. Thank you so much for being on this episode.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I just want to once more shout out that A Texas Carol is currently open. Please come see the show. If you saw it last year, there's more nuance. There's more details and everything in it this year. We have partly new cast. Just come see it. It's a wonderful time. We do have our Dallas Ain't Texas Man shirts. You got to pick your favorite. You got to pick your team. And finally, we did record on our photo booth set that we have out here in the lobby at the theater. So make sure when you come and you see A Texas Carol, you put on your shirt and you come take a photo in our photo booth. So thank you guys again for listening, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye. This has been By George, an 80 Players at the George Theater podcast, hosted and produced by Miranda Zapes. Listen anywhere you listen to podcasts and follow us on Instagram at By George Theater. That's THEATRE. Sure to like, share, and subscribe. And By George, we'll see y'all next time. There's some episodes where, so when I go in to give you a behind the scenes of the editing room for me, so I edit the episode, and I also pick out little bits for TikToks or little posts that we can put online. And I try and pick the most inspirational or the most funny or all those kinds of things. Already, we've been recording for 17, everything you've said is so inspirational. I don't know what I'm going to have to cut to send it out into the world, but
It's flattering. Thank you.
no, it's very well articulated, I have to tell you.